Welcome to another episode of the Harmon Solar Podcast. I'm your host, Ralph Romano, VP of Sales Marketing at Harmon Solar. With me is my co-host, Ben Wolfschlager. He's also known as Mr. Everything. Ben,
great to be back.
Yeah, hey,
thank you.
Good to have you back. Now, okay, we got to do this again.
Let's get it out of the way.
Let's get it out of the way. Okay, we started with a business card.
Yep.
Then we went to a pamphlet.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went to a newspaper.
Newspaper. I think
Then scroll.
Scroll.
Then adventure book.
Mm-hmm.
Then Reader's Digest.
Yep.
Where are we today?
Actually, some breaking news for you.
Breaking news.
Yeah, we're going backwards now.
Uh-oh.
I had to, somewhat give up a small role.
Okay.
Because we hired somebody else at Harmon, so I'm no longer adding things. I took away one, so I guess I'm down to like a PowerPoint presentation.
You're a PowerPoint presentation,
Yeah,
so
sure.
that's that's your business card.
My
Okay.
business card is just here's my PowerPoint.
Going backwards.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, backwards is okay.
I think I should join the rest of the world and just be a normal one Mr. One Thing.
Mr. One Thing.
Business card. Here it is.
No, you actually proved to me this week that you are Mr. Everything because I asked you a question. I'm like, how did you even know this? And you go, because I'm Mr. Everything.
I didn't answer the question. I just said, I just know things.
That was hilarious.
I know you.
So today, this is a great one.
This is the podcast.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, this is what it's all about. This is why we started this. We are going to talk. It's called Solar 101.
This is the one we probably should have started with.
Probably.
That's okay, though.
But this is Solar 101. And I mean, this is going to deep dive into what solar is.
Yeah.
And the components of solar, how you finance it, the save. I mean, this is going to be a lot of fantastic information. You don't want to miss this one.
Yeah, we started off by doing all these tiny little subsections of solar, and then we realized, wait a minute, we haven't talked about the big picture. Let's talk big picture now. So that's what we're doing today, big picture.
And this is going to be part one of the two-part episode that we're going to do on Solar 101 because it's such a big topic. There's so much in this. We want to take our time and go through the components in the first part and kind of understand what goes into a solar system. And then also maybe just touch on, the time to shine of, the sun's path and the different things and azimuth and all that good stuff and what we need to put the panel in the perfect spot to produce energy. So that's what we're going to talk about in part one. And then in part two, we'll get into like savings and purchase options and all those different kinds of things as well.
Yeah, this is all important information, so we want to go in depth with it. We don't want to just skim it. Right,
exactly. So let's get started with part one. So usually we got a guy.
You got a guy.
Say, I got a guy.
You wore your I got a guy sweater.
I wore my I got a guy sweater. We don't have a guy today.
There's no guy here.
You know who we have today? Me and you, because we are experts in Solar 101. I've done seminars. You've done seminars. So we're going to do a podcast seminar in a sense.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of great information to share. Buckle in. This is a good one. So we are going to start on the basics of solar, right? First thing I want to do is talk about Harmon Solar. In case you've never been to our facility or never seen it, I mean, this is actually the front of our building. It's really we have a beautiful building.
Yeah,
at Harmon.
I like to always tell people we're not just a guy working out of his mom's basement.
Right.
Like we're an actual company, with a building, and you can Google us. We actually have solar on our back lot.
Yeah, I'm going to show you that in a second.
We're a product of a product, so we're a legit company.
We're locally owned, operated since 1975. We started as a commercial electrical company, got into solar in 2008. And as you can see, as Ben just mentioned, we practice what we preach. Yep. That's our, we're showing a picture of our array in the back of our building, which basically powers our building.
I like walking in every morning and you have that display right on the front desk. You can see how much power you've generated here at the...
Yeah, that's right.
We have a little display of how much power have we generated and, today and the year, so we can see how our system is doing every single day.
And we park our trucks under there. We put this up in 2012. It's an 80K system. And like I said, it takes care of the building. So we practice what we preach. I mean, it's just important, right? If you're going to be living this world, you got to be part of it.
Right.
I have solar on my house.
Right.
When Ben gets his new house, I'm sure he'll have solar on it as well. So we know it's a big benefit for us. And so as a business, we know that too. And here you go. Just wanted to show everybody a picture of that. And if you're listening on Spotify, I'm sorry.
You could just imagine it.
Yeah, imagine. So we're going to go, like I said, we're going to start off real basic with the components of the solar system.
Yep.
Right? So there's a few different areas we're going to go into. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move past this one. And we're going to start at the most basic thing that you need in a solar system.
Solar panel.
That's right. You got to have a solar panel.
Yeah.
And what's a solar panel, right? So, you look up the definitions. Basically, it's a bunch of solar cells that are combined into one panel. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. These cells a majority of these cells are typically made in China. That's just a fact.
It is.
Most of them are made in China, and then they're shipped out to different countries where they take them and they put them together as panels.
Right.
I mean, so I know people are very big on, I want US made this, I want US made that. And that's fantastic. And I'm glad you do. But typically the stuff is shipped out of somewhere else. And a lot of it's China, Malaysia, some parts in Europe. We do have more manufacturers now that are in like North America, like Canada. Mm-hmm. There was Sun Power was in Mexico.
I always tell people, look around your house. Not everything in your house is American made. You know,
it's a great point.
Your phone that you have in your hand right now, whatever you're listening to right now, probably not made in America. It was made somewhere overseas.
And remember, I mean, the statute for it was made in America. It doesn't have to typically all be made in America. It could be assembled in America.
Yeah.
That's typically what you have with solar panels. They're assembled.
Yeah.
They could be assembled in America. It doesn't mean the parts are actually made here.
You do have kind of those shady companies out there who are like, all of our stuff is made in America. All the panels, the inverters, the racking, everything that we put on your house is made in America. And it's like,
not so much.
No. Let's be honest with your customers here. You know, it might be assembled in a few spots, you know, in America, but not necessarily made in America.
So what I'm going to show here next is every panel has a data sheet. Mm-hmm. It's a cut sheet. We call it a cut sheet. It's a data sheet. And what I'm showing you guys here on YouTube is the Hyundai solar module data sheet. And it has a lot of basic information on it.
This isn't just the only panel we offer. We have other panels. So this is just kind of an example. So don't just assume this is the only one we have. Right.
But we all, Hyundai is one of those brand names. Everybody knows what Hyundai is or who Hyundai is. You've just seen the Hyundai cars. I mean, that came from Korea, South Korea. They got into the solar business and they make a very good panel.
Yeah.
So it's just brand recognition a lot of times. You'll see companies like LG, who used to be around, Panasonic used to be around. I don't think they're being made here anymore.
Yeah.
Hyundai, Hanwha has become a big name in the U.S. for solar panels. REC, y'all know REC. I mean, they got in the solar business. GE was in the solar business. I'm not sure if they're still in it or not.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of companies that have gotten into the solar panel business, and some have gotten out. But so this is just a prime example. Whenever we look at a solar panel, we give this also to a customer on an appointment. But it just shows a lot of good detailed information.
Yeah, it's all the technical aspect. The heat degradation, how much it's producing, warranty information, things like that.
I wanted to hit on the warranty. I think I gave you a sheet, right?
Probably, yeah.
So focus on the warranty. It's actually, I think it's a 25-year. It talks about a power warranty. It talks about basically a panel warranty and what those mean.
Like bumper to bumper warranties in your car, like that?
Kinda.
I know.
I guess.
I know the answer to that, yeah.
Yeah.
It yes and no.
So maybe you want to explain.
So the warranty, you have to look at your warranty. There's two aspects of the warranty. How is the panel going to hold up? Is it going to break? Is it going to bend? Is it going to shift? Things like that. And then how is it going to actually perform? Because that's probably the biggest thing there is. If it's up on your roof, you don't want it to fall apart, obviously. Right. You don't want it to crack and, so that's not the production warranty. The production warranty is what's most important because that affects your bills. So when you're looking at warranties, you should probably looking at what type of warranty am I getting? Am I getting a production warranty or am I getting a manufacturer warranty on the actual equipment?
I think they call it a linear warranty now, don't they? It degrades so much per year over 25 years. And I think, for instance, this Hyundai panel, I want to say it degrades down to 85% of output.
Which is pretty standard.
Over 25 years.
Yeah.
So what that means is by year 25, it's producing 85% of what it was today.
Yeah, and don't get hung up on that. That doesn't necessarily mean by year 26 it all of a sudden goes to zero.
Yeah.
We laugh, but we actually have those conversations like, well, what happens afterwards? Like, does it stop producing? Do I need new panels? Like, no. That's just saying on average, the testing that they've done, it's saying it's going to be about 85%. Who knows? You might have 90% or it could be kind of around 85%. It doesn't mean it's going to drop off to zero after that.
But what I would say is it's pretty standard today for modules to have 25-year power and performance warranties.
Yeah.
That we're talking about. If you get someone showing you a module that has like 12 years, I mean, that's 5 years ago.
Yeah. I do remember when I first started in the industry, the warranties were a huge difference.
Right.
You would have, 20-year warranties and 5-year warranties. So it's like,
right. So
now,
it's changed.
Yeah. Now everyone's pretty much aligned. They're all.
So if somebody shows you a 12-year warranty on a panel, you need to really balk at that.
Yeah.
Because everything out there, I would say 25 years is a standard today.
Yeah.
And then when you talk warranty, so for instance, this is my favorite living in Arizona is you have a lot of people that live on golf courses.
Yep.
And there's a lot of bad golfers out there.
No.
Yeah. I'm one of them. And if you're on a golf course and a panel gets broken by a golf ball, It's kind of outside of the warranty.
Yeah, it happens. And I actually talked with a customer a couple months ago that, looking at their aerial views, I noticed a lot of, because they called in and said, hey, I think my panels are underproducing. So naturally we take a look at it and go, so you live by a golf course, right, and you have a whole bunch of little dots all over your panels, I see. And he goes, yeah, I usually find golf balls in my backyard. I go, well, that's probably why your panels are underproducing, because they're getting bombarded by all those bad golfers.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't think the manufacturer is going to be too keen on replacing that panel for you for free.
Right.
So just understand that. The one thing about Harmon is when we install it, we give a 5-year, basically, there's like a 5-year warranty where if anything does happen to it, we'll pay for the part, and the part gets paid by the manufacturer, but we'll pay for all the labor to come out and do all the stuff that has to do. After 5 years, it's between you and the manufacturer, and it depends on the manufacturer. They're all different. Some cover all the labor, some cover part of the labor. So just understand that. Everybody's out there saying, yeah, it's bumper to bumper, 25. It's not.
Yeah.
Manufacturer don't work that way. Make sure you really look at the manufacturer and read into the warranties and what they are.
Yeah. But the nice thing about Harmon is that even if you don't know, because I know you're dealing with, Harmon, and then you have your manufacturer of your Hyundai panels, you're like, who do I call? Just call us.
Yeah,
we'll take care of it. We're not necessarily the one who's going to be, doing the replacement or the cost for it, because we'll probably reach out to, our suppliers and manufacturers to do all that. But I keep preaching to people, it's one number to call us, we'll take care of it. Because I know there's a lot of solar companies out there, if something breaks, they go, oh, we'll contact the manufacturer. Right. We sold it or we installed it. But after that, it's out of our hands. It's all on you. But we're not like that.
So back to the 101 theme. You need sun for solar.
Go on.
The light, the light hits that panel and it produces DC power.
Right.
Okay. Direct current power. Now homes run on
AC.
So there's a problem there.
Right.
We got to convert that DC to AC. And how do we do that? Well, I'm glad you asked.
I did. I asked.
You did. You asked. We have what's called an inverter in the system. So this is the next component we're going to talk about, are inverters. And they do exactly what I just said. They convert DC power to AC usable home power.
Yep. From direct current to alternating current.
Alternating current. And there's different types of inverters, and we sell them all.
Yeah.
And there's positives about all of them, and there's probably some negatives about all of them.
Sure.
But we're going to kind of go into the differences and what that is.
Yeah. I hate hearing from other sales reps from other companies who say like, oh, you don't want that type of inverter. You want this. Like, well, how do you know what I want?
I can give you an argument for or against every one of these.
Exactly. There's pros and cons to each.
And what you have are people selling one inverter, and they only give you the pros for that and the cons for everything else.
Exactly.
And I can come in your door after you're done talking to him and tell him why you shouldn't get that inverter.
Yeah.
It's a personal decision what you want.
Sure.
And there's a cost to each one.
Yep.
So it just depends what you're really looking to do.
Which is nice about Harmon, because we're not going to say you don't ever get this type of inverter.
Right.
We're going to present you with options. We'll say, hey, depending on your lifestyle or what you want and costs and everything, here's your options. Let's figure out what works best for you.
That's right. So, and this next slide for those of you on YouTube. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ones that we offer to you and kind of how they're set up. So I'm going to start with probably the most popular inverter over the last, I would say, 18 months in Arizona. Inverters go through cycles.
Oh yeah.
It's really funny because it's all about, who's offering the best price to the installers, what people think is cool. And all of a sudden you see these cycles where we'll go from this one goes for 18 months and the next 18 months, it's the next one.
Yep.
And it's always, like I said, I can sell you any of them, but people seem to gravitate to one.
Yep.
And then they ride that horse.
Yeah.
And then once that horse gets tired, they go to that next one and they ride that horse. So I'm going to show you all the horses.
Yeah. I've been in the industry for about 8 years and I've seen it shift maybe about 3 times during that time.
Yeah, I could think of even a couple more.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Like, okay, well, if that's what you want, then that's what you want. But at least you know the pros and cons to everyone.
So I'm gonna start with the current horse.
Okay.
This is the horse that's been going on for about 18 months. And there's a shift coming.
Yeah.
But this is the horse that's been going on for 18 months. And this is a good product, right? So it's an Enphase microinverter. Mm-hmm. Enphase, good company, microinverter. It's a great product. Let me explain what a microinverter is. So if you look at the top right of the slide, you see that black microinverter. That attaches to the panels underneath the back end of the panel.
The individual panels.
Each individual panel. So every panel has its own little microinverter.
Yep.
Really cool, right? Mm-hmm. So that really means that you can actually register and see how every panel in your system individually is doing through your monitoring app.
Right.
If you're a techie, if you're an engineer, you just got a big smile on your face. If you're a normal person, not that you're not normal if you're an engineer, got to say that.
Wait a minute. Disclaimer to all engineers out there.
But if you're the common person, the average person, that's great. It's awesome.
We have no idea what that means.
But you might look at it once. I looked at my app once.
Yeah.
And I never looked at it again.
Yeah.
Because I just got better things to do than see how my solar panel is doing today.
I talk with people all the time who are like, monitoring every individual panel and weather cycles and the clouds going over here and this is doing that. Like, okay.
And your sales guy that only sells this is going to give you all that. This is very important because it's panel level monitoring.
Yep.
Wow. Who cares? It's still a great product.
Yeah.
But they're also going to sell you on this next piece, and that is shading.
Yeah.
And this inverter is going to help because when you get shade on a panel, it can tend to produce less. And with this inverter, so let's say this panel here has an inverter and it's getting shaded, but this one here is got an inverter and it's not getting shaded. This one might produce less. This one keeps doing what it's doing.
Right. Because panels work off the sun.
And that's important in a second. I'm going to tell you why it's important, but not just yet.
Yeah.
But it's a big selling point on Enphase is that every panel has its own inverter. I'm going to give you the negative now. It's 160 degrees on your roof in the summer, and you have a mechanical inverter, electrical piece of equipment.
Like 40 of them. Because if you have 40 panels, you have 40 of them.
On your roof.
On your roof.
Now, when Enphase first started, they had a lot of issues with inverters, but I'll give them this. They have improved these inverters.
Sure.
And they perform a lot better. They have a 25-year warranty on them. It's a great product. It's also the most expensive product. Just so you know, there's a price for everything. So that's product A. Great product, most expensive, has the benefit that protects you from some shading, and also panel level monitoring. Those would be the keys to that inverter. You then have the stepsister of this, and for us, it's the Tigo. SolarEdge does it as well, and it's called a string inverter with optimizers. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So a string inverter, what does that mean? So panels are put up on the roof in strings, and let me explain that. Well, you know what? Let you explain that. Go ahead.
Well, it's pretty easy to explain.
Yeah.
You have your array that might have 10 panels, so they have to be strung together because all that electrical wire has to be fed to your home. So they tie them all together. Think Christmas lights. They're all strung together in one strand of Christmas lights on your roof. So
they have I think some Tigos, I think they have 4 output strings. So basically you can, per inverter, you can string, let's say 4 strings. So I can have 4 strings of 10 or 4 strings of 11, or you can have a string of 4 here and a string of 10 here and a string of 5 here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what we mean by when we say a string inverter versus a microinverter, which is per panel. This is per string. Now, what they also do on this string inverter is they put on something called an optimizer. Optimizer looks exactly like the Enphase that I just showed you.
Yep.
It goes on the back of every single panel. And what it does is it optimizes.
Optimizes.
Right. It's Mr. Optimizer. He's going to, he doesn't make your panels optimistic. What he does.
It's cloudy out, but my panels say they're not cloudy.
My panels say it's a blue sky. No. So what it does is if there is shade. So here's the difference with a string inverter. If there is shade on, let's say 2 of the 8 panels in a string, it affects all 8 panels.
Right. I always tell people, think of Christmas lights.
Again, great.
Yeah. You take one bulb out, the whole thing goes out.
Yep.
That's a string inverter.
Yep.
Microinverter, you take one bulb out, just that one bulb is out.
Right. And that is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Now, what optimizers do is if they start seeing shading, they will optimize the output of the panel, and it actually fights against that shade and doesn't give you that big negative impact that you would see without it.
Yeah.
So that's what an optimizer is. So that's kind of like the string inverter's little sister's best friend that helps you get into the same playing field as a microinverter. I have string inverters on my house.
It's like a hybrid.
Yeah, it's a hybrid. And this is the exact setup I have in my house.
Yeah.
And it works great. It fights against shade and all that. I don't have any issues.
Yeah, because you do have a big tree, I think, out front, right? That
I now have 4 big palm trees on my west that weren't that big when I put solar on 7 years ago. That I now have to decide whether I'm going to cut down or not.
Okay.
And they're starting to look like they're going to come down.
Yeah, you're looking at those APS bills and going,
well, late in the day, right? Because of the west, and I lose some production in the later part of the day.
Yeah.
So those are the decisions you have to make, right? And for me, I'm going to have to make that decision. If I had a microinverter, it still would impact the microinverter because I'd still going to, all of them get shade.
Right.
So yeah, it's just my situation. Just that's me.
Yeah.
But
So if you do have a house that has, partial shading because of trees around, consider that. Don't just be stuck into one type of inverter with the quote that you're getting.
Right. And this inverter, I would say price wise, is a step down from the microinverter.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little cheaper, depending who you're dealing with. But I know for us, it's a little cheaper.
Yeah.
But again, another really good product that we use has really good monitoring as well. You panel level monitor because you have optimizers.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have that. So it's the same kind of monitoring as Enphase. The only difference is that it's run off a string inverter, the big unit that you see in the picture here, that'll be on your wall in a garage or outside by your SES, wherever we put the equipment. You'll actually have that piece of equipment there versus not having that piece of equipment on the wall because it's up on the module.
Yeah, I always tell people when they're deciding between string inverters and microinverters, because there are pros and cons to each. Inverter is going to go down. It's going to happen.
Right.
Hopefully it's during the warranty period, but it's just a matter of how many times do you want that to happen. String inverter, you're having one inverter or one or two inverters on your home. It's going to break down. It might just be one phone call because, hey, my inverter's went down. I need it replaced. Come out and fix it. Microinverters, now you have 40 tiny inverters.
Yep.
So you might have to make multiple calls because, hey, I just noticed 2 of them went down. 2 of them are not reporting. I need those fixed. A couple of months later, a different 2 went down. So I need to get those fixed. So, it's going to happen, just a matter of when.
You're right. I mean, and the warranty on a string inverter, so those optimizers that go into the panels, 25 years.
Yeah.
That string inverter that's on your wall, typically 12 and a half years on average is what they warranty. But you can buy an extended warranty to 25 years.
Right.
So you can get the same kind of warranty coverage you have with the microinverter. Your call.
Yeah.
Then there's the third product. Now, this product is newer and it's older.
Makes sense.
And it's newer.
Yeah, it is newer. Yeah.
So we talk about Tesla. So Tesla has a really interesting string inverter that is really starting to hit the market today.
I'll let you talk about it more because you know more.
Yeah, I do
more
know
than
more.
I do.
I knew more about it. And there's a lot of cool things about this inverter. Number one, it looks cool. Everything Tesla makes just looks cool.
Cybertruck came out today.
Yeah, I saw that. Except for the Cybertruck, everything that Tesla makes looks cool.
Yeah.
That is the ugliest truck ever, but it's got a lot of cool features.
Yeah, it looks cool.
It really does. But this is the Tesla inverter, and so this will play into batteries as well, and we'll talk about that next. But this inverter, it's a string inverter.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, but it's a high efficiency string inverter. It actually is more efficient than the Enphase or the Tigo.
Okay.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
It is liquid cooled.
Interesting as well.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, because most of them are fan cooled.
They're all fan cooled.
Yeah.
And they tend to get hot, and when they get hot, they start to clip.
Yep.
And what that means, what's clipping, not the clippers from Los Angeles. What clipping is that all of a sudden your production will basically, it'll flatline.
Yeah.
It won't get better, get worse. It kind of flatlines for a little bit because it's got too hot. We call it derating. We call it clipping, whatever you want to call it. But that can happen with the other inverters because it gets so hot.
Yeah, we always had that conversation with customers. You might have a 10 kilowatt system, but then you got to look at, well, what are my inverters going to be doing?
Right. So really, really good point, right?
Just because it's 10 kilowatts on my panels doesn't mean I'm going to be getting 10 kilowatts from my actual.
Right. So not only will it clip because of heat, now to your point, which is a really another good point we should hit right here, is you get the customer or you get the salesperson that says, I'm going to sell you a 450 watt panel and I'm going to put a Enphase microinverter on it.
Yep.
That's great. It's only going to produce like a 400 watt panel because those inverters can't handle a panel at 450 watts.
Yep.
So whether you pay for the 450 watt or buy a 400 watt, you're basically getting to get the same production.
Yeah.
It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yep.
Because there's a thing called clipping.
Yep.
Very important. Put that in your little notebook. It's called clipping with solar. It's very important. You can put the biggest panel in the world you want. It's only going to be as good as the inverter.
Yeah.
And the inverter is going to only handle about 400 or so.
Yep.
And let's get into the commercial stuff. The commercial stuff is made to handle 550 and those things. We're not talking commercial. We're talking your house. If you go much more than a 400, you're basically paying just to say you have a 400 plus, but you're really not getting the benefit of it.
Yeah.
So back to the Tesla. So it's liquid cooled. So in the northeastern part of the country, in the north part of the country, it'll help warm it up. In our part of the country, it helps keep it cool.
Nice.
Right? So that's a big deal. I mean, that means it's going to be more efficient because it's going to run efficient temperature-wise. It has about a 97% efficiency at its peak.
That's pretty good.
And starting off the day, it starts off at about 93, gets to 97, and then goes down from there. Versus all these other things that we've talked about, it's higher. It's better efficiency. So it's a string inverter, though.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It doesn't have optimizers. You can't have optimizers with this.
So shading is no-go.
So let's talk about shading. And this is an important conversation. And it's funny, we just had Tesla in the office yesterday, and we were talking through all this stuff. 93% of their customer base does not have shading issues. Think about that.
93%.
93%. And think about their customer base. Let's just talk Arizona, because that's all we're focused on.
Yeah.
How many of you have a ton of shading on your roof?
I know I don't. I have shrubs and bushes.
I'm going to say 90. I'm going to stick with 93. I could go 95, but I'm going to say 93% of you probably don't really have impacts of shading. So
wow.
A microinverter, an optimizer, does nothing for you. You don't need it. It's not there's no shading that's going to hurt your setup.
Yeah.
And if you do have a little shading, what you can do with a string inverter is, let's say there's an area of your roof there's a little shading and we have to put panels there. So let's say we just put 2 panels there on a string, and then we put the majority of them away from the shade. There's really no impact. So it takes down the string of 2.
Yeah.
Right. You can adjust the design to offset if there is some shading. But the reality is, in Arizona especially, 93% of you don't have a shading issue.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is educate you as the home buyer. You know, if a sales rep from another company comes in and just is pitching you, these inverters with optimizers and all this stuff, and you look at your home and you go, hey, I was watching the Harmon Solar podcast and they told me that since I don't have shading, I don't really need all this stuff. Can you get me, cheaper and better inverters?
Yeah, absolutely.
See what they say.
And so I'm here to tell you that most of the time, based on the stats, a microinverter is overkill.
Yeah.
An optimizer is overkill. Most of the time. Majority of the time. Again, your situation is your situation. I don't know your situation, but I'm going to tell you, take a look at your situation, understand, like Ben just said, and know that you don't want to pay for overkill. Because here's the cool thing. This is the cheapest inverter by far.
Right.
The pricing that Tesla has come out with this inverter is rocking the industry right now. They don't know what to do because, number one, it's a really good inverter. It's highly efficient. It's liquid cooled, and it's really cheap.
Yeah.
So people are starting to go, what do we do? Because Tesla has this way of just kind of doing that, right?
Sure,
and they're doing it with this. Now, the only negative that I can tell you, and they'll spin it into a positive, but I can give you the negative, is it only has a 12.5-year warranty. You don't get a 25-year warranty,
right. Yep.
and there's no option to upgrade to a 25-year warranty. Because it's so cheap, they're not offering an extended warranty. They're like, it's so cheap.
Just buy a new one.
Just buy another one.
Yeah.
And you're still going to pay less than you would have.
Yeah.
So that's their pitch. Highly efficient. It's a Tesla product. It's a real well-made product. It's liquid cool, which is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. Great for SRP customers.
Yeah.
Because in SRP, as we talked about before, it's very, very hard to show a savings just because of how SRP bills after solar. So you really, really need to cut a lot of costs, not quality, but costs in SRP. So this is a good option for those customers.
Yep. So these are your 3, I'm showing you 3 products, but these are your 3 basic setups that you have out there, right? A string inverter, string inverter with optimizers, and a microinverter. Those are your 3. Those are the 3 things in this world.
Only 3, yeah.
That's it.
Unless there's something else out there.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so. So, these are the things that you should know of. So understand when someone comes and pitches you solar, these are the options. That's how they work. Know what's best for you, not what's best for them, because that's all they sell. Right. So that's why at Harmon, we have a full tool belt of inverters. We're going to put whatever's best for you, and know that if you want a microinverter, they're great products. We love Enphase, we love Tigo, we love Tesla. We'll sell you any one of them, but I'm not going to I don't want to oversell you when I don't need to.
Right.
It just depends on what your needs and wants are.
Right. Everyone's going to be different. Just let us know.
So that's inverters. The next piece kind of ties into the long one, but it's an important one, right? Because these sales guys.
It's the brains of your system, basically.
This is how they train them, and this is they try to sell you a certain type of equipment, and they try to tell you it's the best.
I won't name the company that was with before Harmon. I was there for about 3 months, and I read through all the nonsense. They didn't do a good job of training me on the equipment. They said, "This is what we sell. These are the panels. These are the inverters.
Yep,
go out." And I was like, okay, I feel like I need more information on this, but that's not what they were about. They're all about their bottom line and making money and really don't care what their customers are like. Then I found Harmon and I was like, well, it's actually a little bit different in the industry. Let's actually start caring about people and doing it the right way.
Yeah, I agree. Every time we've brought on a new person, they always say, why are you training me on the equipment? No one ever has done that before.
Yeah.
Because you need to understand this. How do you sell something you don't know what it is?
Which is scary.
Right.
Like you were selling this before?
Right.
Yeah.
That just goes to show you. So you got to be careful.
Yeah.
Harmon Solar Podcast, educating you, empowering you. That's what we do. All right. So let's talk batteries. So we also sell multiple batteries.
Yeah.
Enphase, that microinverter, they make a battery. They make little 3K batteries that you can stack.
Yep. Small, medium, and large, basically.
Tego makes a battery system. But we're pretty big on the Tesla battery, the Powerwalls.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the Powerwall. The Powerwall, as far as I'm concerned, and all the batteries we've looked at, gives you the most benefit. It's got the best technology. Tesla is trying to create this universe, right? Where, hey, you buy a Tesla car charger, Tesla solar system,
Tesla inverter,
Tesla battery, all on one app.
Yeah.
That's where this world is going. And Tesla's kind of ahead of it right now. They don't have solar panels right now, but they are talking about potentially starting to make those again someday out in Buffalo in their gigaplant. But right now, that's what their thought process is. And I like that thought process because that's where we're all going. Everyone's following. But the battery is a very interesting thing. And we will, one of these days here, we'll do a podcast just on the batteries because I think we can really dive in deep on batteries.
That's going to be another long one for sure.
Yeah, that's a long one, but it's a good one. And we'll have to bring in an engineer for that. So that'll be interesting because you really need to have that expertise to talk these details of these batteries. But the Tesla battery, very cool product. They have the Powerwall. They came out with the Powerwall 1, then they came out with the Powerwall 2, then they came out with the Powerwall Plus. And now they've got the Powerwall 3 coming out.
Yeah.
So Powerwall 3 is actually coming out in January of 24.
Yeah, they kind of very discreetly pushed it out there. Like,
they have.
Not a whole lot of advertisement. They're just kind of like, hey, guess what? We got this.
And you know what? Harmon Solar actually has got availability to them right now through a pilot program for Tesla.
Are we allowed to say that?
No.
We'll edit it.
But yeah, so and I'll explain the differences. But the Powerwall 1 was just their first gen check at it. Yeah. The Powerwall 2.
I'll be honest, when the Powerwall 1 came out, it was fine.
Yeah, it was.
But it wasn't great.
No, it wasn't great, but it was industry.
Looking at the price point and what it does or what it did and everything, I was like, I get it. It's the first. It's, generation 1.
You never buy Gen 1.
Right.
That's just me. I would never buy Gen 1.
Yeah, but then the Powerwall 2 came out. I was like, okay.
It made improvements.
It was a little bit better. The pricing was great. Pricing was good on it. So it got better. So I'm curious to see Powerwall 3, how that's going to go.
You went to Powerwall 2, which we still sell, the Powerwall 2 requires other equipment to be on the wall. So you have the Powerwall battery, you've got a gateway, you've got all this stuff, all this equipment that you have to put up there. Great product. You got to have the space to put it up. Works really well with you, especially if you have an existing solar system. We'll sell you a Powerwall 2 because that's what really goes with an existing system because it works off the inverters off your system. But then they came out with what's called the Powerwall Plus.
Yeah.
And that's what you see here on the left side. The Powerwall Plus has an inverter as part of it.
Yep.
So no longer are you looking at Enphase or you're looking at Tego. Everything's going through the inverter off the battery. It's a 7.6 inverter. Don't worry about what that is. But it's an inverter as part of the battery. Well, I kind of see how it's stacked. It looks really nice. But everything runs through there, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then instead of putting all this extra equipment on the wall, you don't need it.
Yep.
You just have this one band that goes around your meter, and it basically backs up that entire panel. And on your entire panel, your electric panel, it'll do backup for. Now, that can be deceiving because, again, we're Arizona. If you put one battery backing up your entire panel and you turn the AC on,
and now
an hour later, you don't have battery.
Right.
So we all know that. So if your main purpose is ever to back up your AC because of a power outage, you need more than one battery.
That's probably the biggest misconception out there in the whole industry.
Yep.
They're great in cooler climates or, coastal climates where the temperatures aren't very extreme. But here in Arizona, our temperaters are pretty extreme. Wintertime will get down to 30s and summer in the 130s.
Right. And we have a great power grid here.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of outages.
You're right.
Probably not. Man, we do out in the east side of town. It seems because of the storms and stuff.
Yeah.
But typically, even there,
the outskirts do have outages. But
in Metro Phoenix area, we don't have a lot of outages. So we have a really good grid. Where this really benefits is in two places. Number one, if you just want to have a backup system in case something happens. Maybe you have an elderly parent that needs an oxygen tank that runs all the time,
right?
Or you need a fridge to run keep medicine cool. Whatever that is. You're diabetic and you have to keep your penicillin. Not penicillin, but your.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that stuff.
Yeah, I had those conversations with customers who were like, "Oh no, if the grid goes down for like a week, I want to be able to back up my entire house." I'm like, maybe in the early spring that could be possible for a few days here and there, but in the summertime, grid goes down. It'd
be tough.
Your battery's gonna be drained, and now what?
So where this battery does really play well is what we call peak shaving.
Yeah.
So what do we mean by that? Well, we've talked SRP and stuff. So during the middle part of the day when the utilities are charging the highest amount for kilowatt hours, so where all of a sudden it's 32 cents from APS or SRP to buy your power, what you can do is have your battery set, a Tesla set, to start feeding power off the battery and offsetting that high cost usage. So you charge it in the morning.
Yeah.
It's the best time to do it.
In the morning when you're not using a whole lot of power, maybe you're gone at work, that power has to go somewhere. It's going to go not to the grid, but to the battery to charge.
Right. It charges it. And then at 4 o'clock when you need it, it kicks on and it starts giving you that cheap power instead of buying that expensive power from the utility.
Right.
And then you see the impact in your bill.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. I think you could do the math. I think these are 13.5 kilowatt, they're 13.5K batteries. And you can do the math and it comes up with where I think this will give you 480 kilowatts a month or something like that. I can't remember the exact number. We did it yesterday. But it's a good amount of power that you can use to offset peak times. Yeah. And that's where you can save money with a battery. That's the real play for a battery. If one of these will start an air conditioner.
Yeah.
Again, it won't last very long, but it will start it.
It'll start the AC.
Which is a big deal when you think about it, because other battery companies out there won't start it.
Yeah, that's true.
But my recommendation when doing a battery is you do at least 2. You put 2 batteries into the system. It's a little bit more that you can handle with 2 batteries. We've done 3. I just quoted 4 today. It just depends on your situation and what you want to do.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah. And in some cases, not everyone needs a battery.
Right.
Which I know everyone in the solar industry is like, what did he just say?
Right. But the reality is they're getting cheaper. They've actually come down. They've come down about 25% in the last year and a half.
Yeah, they're getting better. They're getting cheaper. So eventually it'll get to that point where like, okay, well now it makes sense that if you are getting solar, then batteries would be kind of a good thing to have no matter what.
So like I said, the Powerwall 2 has the inverter, that 7.6 inverter. The Powerwall 3 has an 11K inverter, which means you can now put even a bigger system on that battery. And that's when I start talking the inverter size, that just tells me how many panels I can actually put on a roof. I'm not going to sit here and get into that right now, but an 11K inverter on a battery is pretty cool. Put a nice size system, and with that collar and stuff, it actually avoids you having to upgrade panels and things like that, upgrade service panels. It helps you get around all that. So the Powerwall 2 and the Powerwall 3, or Powerwall Plus and the Powerwall 3, very cool. So we're not going to get into more detail. We're gonna do a Powerwall podcast where we will get into the details. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
But just understand how you use a battery. So basically, it's as a backup power, or if you're going to peak shave and you want to save money during peak times. That's the purpose of a battery.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's just go on a couple other parts. We just talked about the electrical panel. So obviously this is part of the system as well. So you have a solar panel producing DC power into an inverter. That then switches it to AC power.
And that power has to go somewhere.
It's got to go somewhere.
Yep.
Where's it going to go? It's going to go to your panel.
Your panel.
Ta-da. So it's going to go into your panel. We typically have a 40 or 60 amp breaker in your box that we put in. And it feeds in there and it starts to be used by you as you use power.
And this is an important aspect of the audit. If you watched our audit podcast, this is one of the main things that we look at. Can your panel handle the solar system? Is it too old? Does it need to be upgraded? Is there space available? Things like that. We need to know what we're dealing with here. So very important to take a look at that panel when we go out there.
Right. Absolutely. So if you have like a little 100 amp panel or 150 amp panel, or you got no space in your 200 amp, we probably have to look at replacing it or upgrading it, or we'll figure that out. Or if you put a Powerwall Plus in there or something like that, maybe we can get around it. Again, there's a lot of caveats to all this.
And it's not uncommon for your sales rep to go out there and say, hey, I want to take a look at your panel.
Right.
At the point of when he's at the appointment. So it's okay. Just let him go out there and take a look.
Yeah, you want them to do that. You want them to take a picture of it because you want them to look at you and say, "Hey, that you're going to probably need an upgrade." I'm not 100% sure, but let's account for it now just in case. Versus me coming back to you saying, "Hey, I got to put an electrical panel upgrade."
Right.
And now you're talking, $2,800 or whatever it is.
Yep. I'd rather have all the information out than the customer before they sign. Say, "Hey, it's included in the price, the electrical panel upgrade, things like that," because I don't want you to sign and then have us come out there and go, "Oh yeah, by the way, now I need to get more money from you because I didn't look at the panel." So,
and I'm going to throw one thing in there. I'm just going to do it at this point. I just might as well do it. If somebody's done some electrical work on your panel and they didn't permit it or they didn't do what they were supposed to do, and for that case, maybe they threw an EV charger in your garage and they didn't permit it, or maybe they added a room for you and they didn't permit it.
Yep.
Be careful because when we go solar, we have to pull permits for everything.
Yep.
And they have to come out and inspect it. And when they see something that was done that's not permitted, guess what happens?
Yeah. Because we go out there, we take a look at everything, and we just assume that there's permits. We assume that whoever did your electrical work is knowing what they're doing. So then when we go and apply for permits, the permit offices come back and go, "Hey, what's this? Who installed this?" Because we don't have any record of this being in our permit. So
and that's going to cost you money.
And that's going to cost
because they'll never turn the solar system on until that unpermitted structure or unpermitted thing is either fixed or taken down or whatever they require.
Right.
So just know that going into it. If you're going solar and you live in unpermitted heaven, don't go solar.
Or get it permitted before going solar.
Yeah.
Which we can help out with, but we can help. Let us know first
for a fee.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we typically will install what's called an electrical smart meter. The smart meter basically any excess electricity that you don't use, that the solar electricity that you don't use, it'll flow back onto the utility grid. Mm-hmm. This meter measures that.
Yep.
So it's basically taking all the unused power. Hey, you've produced too much power. You need to go to the grid because we can't keep you here. And you don't have a battery, and so there's nowhere to put it. Go back to the grid. It has to go through this meter. And so this meter will then basically monitor all that for you. And that's how you get into the credits and different things that you use with the utility. You have to have this meter in place, but it's part of the system.
Yeah. Here's a little secret for you. We talked about your Enphase and Tigo and Tesla. You have those monitoring apps where you can see how much you're producing. Your utility company also has that ability to see how much you're producing. So if you have solar, it's not on your bills, but you can actually log onto your account and you can see your actual production, and it should match your monitoring app. So, some people don't want to use that monitoring app because, it's down or it's glitchy or whatever. You can just log on to your APS or SRP account and you can see how much your solar system is producing as well. You can't see it panel by panel like you can on the apps, but you can see it's, APS said I produced X amount this month, so I know it's working.
Right.
Yeah.
You know that more than anybody of all the people's bills you're looking at.
That's right. That's what
I
do.
At my bill, by the way.
All right.
I'm kidding. So, okay, yeah. So that's why that meter's in place. And then, like we just mentioned, then there, of course, there's the grid.
Yep.
I don't know that you need to really talk much about the grid.
Well, I think it is kind of important to talk about the grid. A lot of people are anti-solar.
What?
I know.
Who's anti-solar?
It's weird, but whatever.
Stop talking about my wife. Go ahead.
But you have to understand, even the grid is solar.
Right.
APS and RSRP, where do they get their power from? They get it from coal plants, natural gas, nuclear, solar, wind, hydroelectric. They have a lot of other ways of providing power to your home. The excess power that you're sending back to the grid, those commercial big parking structures, those are all sending power back to the grid. Those are all feeding APS and SRP's grid. That's how they get their power. They get their power from a lot of different sources.
Right.
So, that's why we talk about our grid is pretty sustainable. It's pretty reliable because we have all those different available outlets for grids or for power.
And our grid has space on it. I think when I think of grids, I always think of Hawaii. When I first started in solar, Hawaii was solar heaven. It was the best place to go sell solar because energy was like outrageous at 50, 60 cents a kilowatt hour. Ooh. I know people, if you don't understand what a kilowatt hour is, in Arizona, we probably pay on average in APS, I want to say 15, 14?
Yeah, APS 15 to 16%, 15, 16 cents, SRP 9 to 11 cents.
Yeah, so they were in the 50s. That's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous.
Imagine your bill being 3 times as much.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. Power in Hawaii was horrendous. So everybody was going solar, and then the problem happened. there was no more room on the grids, especially in Maui. I remember Maui.
Yeah.
There was no room. The grid was full. So they stopped. They said no more solar.
All right, we're done.
That's basically what they said.
Yeah.
They shut it down. And now if you want to go solar, you have to have a battery, and you can only do a 50% offset. That's it.
Because you can't feed the grid.
Right, because you can't feed the grid. You have to keep it just between the battery and your house using it. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
because law of conservation of energy, that power has to go somewhere.
right.
It's going to the grid. Well, the grid has to go somewhere with that power as well. So
I would say be thankful, Arizona. We have a great grid.
yeah.
And it's just a good situation here. One question I always get from people is, hey, if the power goes out on the grid, will my solar keep working? Well, I always say no. And they say, well, that's stupid. Why not?
Yeah.
Think about this for a second. So power goes out, guy down the streets working on the pole to try to fix because maybe something hit the pole and the power went down.
Sure.
He's got to go up there and fix it. You're back feeding energy onto the grid.
Because you're not home.
Right.
And your power, again, has to go somewhere.
That guy turns into a toast,
Yeah.
a piece of toast.
Yep.
Because you just electrocuted him.
Yep.
So it's a safety thing. There has to be a breaker switch that turns it off and doesn't allow it to feed back to the grid. And then your system turns off. Unless you have a battery, it goes into backup mode and then you have power in your house.
Right. Right.
So it's a common question. I get it a lot, just so you understand why that happens.
Yeah.
All right. So we've had panel, DC power, sun comes in, DC power, goes into the inverter, becomes AC power, right? Goes into your panel, feeds all your breakers and stuff. If you have a battery and you have overload, it'll go into the battery. Then if you have overload, it comes back and goes through the smart meter, measures it at the smart meter, goes onto the grid.
That's a lot of movement.
That is a solar system.
That's how it works.
That is all the components of a solar system, and that is the basic of how solar works.
All right, that's it for today.
It's not the science. It's not. It's some of the technology, but that's the makeup of what we would put in your house. I mean, obviously, you're going to have conduit and wiring and rails and stanchions that go into your roof. All the stuff we talked about in episode 3 with David Coleman, the roofing episode. So you're going to have all that stuff, but that is the basic components that we have to put on every time.
Right, and that's why it's very complex. And as we've mentioned many times before, it's very catered to you and your situation because of all those different moving parts.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, any questions? Okay, no. Okay, good. Now we're going to talk about, I call it time to shine.
Time to shine.
Time to shine. So obviously, solar powers, they don't generate power in the evening. I know, it's kind of crazy.
We laugh. I won't name names, even though I know who you are. So, I do get people who, email me.
No, they don't.
Or they'll call and text and go.
No, they don't.
Yes, I won't name names.
Daniel's calling you again. Is that what you're saying?
I won't name names, but maybe we'll flash their name on the screen in the bottom. Yeah.
Dennis, Daniel.
Hey, my solar system's not working. It's not producing power. Mm-hmm. And then it's either one of two things that I will say during these specific cases. Well, it's raining out. So, the clouds are blocking the sun, so that's why it's not producing power. Or, it's 10 o'clock at night, so there's no sun. So that's why you're not.
But there's moon rays.
I know. And then when I start, explain that, they get that aha, and they're like, "Oh, I feel silly" moment. I'm like, "Yeah, it's okay," but we laugh, but it does happen.
So you've really had these conversations.
I've really had these conversations with people who say, "Hey, my solar system's not working." I'm like, "Well, it's dark out." So I don't know what to tell you. They're not moon powered.
Okay. I thought you were kidding.
No. I've had it. I won't name names, but
I'm not sure if I can go on.
I save every email and text.
Well, they need a guy. They need a guy.
Yeah.
So that's part of time to shine. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, and I was noticing this, when I was driving into the office today, I like looking at the sky when I drive, which is probably not really good.
Yeah, it's not safe.
But if you're driving on the 101 and you're, let's say you're going eastbound on the 101 right this time of year, and you look to your right, there's the sun.
Yep.
Right? It's over to the right part of the sky, the southern part of the sky.
That's right.
But when I'm going to work in the August and September, I'm driving, the sun's in my face or it's right above my head, coming through my sunroof. It's right on top of us.
To add to that, and this is going to be sounding kind of weird.
Okay.
In the summertime, when I'm driving to work, I'm also headed east. Sun's right in my face. I put the little visor down to block it.
Right.
This time of year, I can't put the visor down.
Nope.
So you know what I actually do? I raise my seat. I raise my seat so that the top of my car.
That's actually not a bad idea.
The top of my car covers that side because the passenger side visor doesn't block it. It's right in the gap of the two visors. So I raise my seat up a little bit and then it's blocked. So I'm driving to work. You probably see like, who's this weirdo sitting up perfectly straight in his car? Like that's because I'm blocking the sun. But go on.
We say all this because it's important, right?
Yeah,
the sun's path during the summer versus during the winter are very different.
Very different.
And that changes production.
Yes.
It just does. So if it's in the summer and the path of the sun is over our heads, which it typically is in Arizona, and you have panels on the northern part of your home, like let's say they're facing north, you're going to get decent production because the sun goes overhead. It's going to still hit the northern part.
Sure.
But in the winter,
or the other 9 months.
yeah, the other 9 months when it's actually in the southern sky and it's on the opposite side of your house, not so much production going to happen.
Yeah.
So little things like that you would never think about are very important on where you put solar on your home.
Sure. I've talked with a few customers and sales reps too when they're analyzing, solar production and what their bills are going to be like after solar. And I do remember one case, it was very recent. He was saying, "Oh, my production is going to be, 12,000 kilowatt hours a year. So in December, it's going to be 1,000 kilowatt hours." He just had it like it was like 1,000 for each month. Like, no, because of seasons, it's a bell curve. So you're not going to be producing 1,000 in December. You're going to be producing less than that, but then more in the summer because of, the Earth's axis is tilted and we have different seasons. So I had to go into that conversation with that.
But there are things you just don't think about.
Right. Like I got his thinking. I understand his thinking and understanding, but it's like, no, you have to put all the pieces of the puzzle together because in the wintertime, we're going to get lower production.
And think about, okay, so in the summer, it stays light till 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit after 8. So if we have panels on the western part of your house, the sun does set in the west, right? And it's 8 o'clock at night. You're getting production until that sun sets. In the winter, what time does it get dark?
Like 6,
5:30-ish.
Yeah.
So you now have lost 2.5 hours of production that you had in the summer.
Yeah.
It's gone on that western side.
Yeah.
It creates that bell curve you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're always going to have your peak production in certain times of the year, and you're going to see it drop as you get to the later time of the year and into the early part of the year.
Yeah.
That's just how it works.
Yeah.
There's science behind this.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the best time to get solar?
Yes.
During this time? Is that where this segued in?
That's where it's going.
Okay. So yeah, the best time to get solar, I always tell people it's kind of like the stock market. When people want to, invest in the stock market or trade in the stock market, there's two aspects, timing the market or time in the market.
Right.
Same with solar. You can try to time it, but then time with solar is more important. So yes, there's a best time to get solar, which is kind of crazy. A lot of people think like, oh, it's summertime. My bills are $600. I should probably look into getting solar. Well, by then it's too late because you're already at the peak of summer. Your bills are the highest. By the time it gets installed, it's now ramping down. Now is actually the time to start looking at solar. I know your bills aren't very high and you're probably not interested in it right now, but now is actually a good time to look at it because if you want to time it just right, just like in the stock market, you want to, time an entry. Now is a good time because by the time you get installed, we're going to start ramping that solar production up to the summer.
Right.
So getting installed in January, February before the solar production, before the stock market starts to go up, you want to buy a low, sell high. Before then is a great time. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter the timing of getting in because it's a longevity thing too. If you happen to get your system turned on in the summer, it's okay. It's no big deal. It'll take you a full year to see that good savings, and you go solar for the long-term savings as well. So you'll see that savings year after year after year. So by then it doesn't matter. If
your motivation was, we just had the hottest summer on history and I'm not going to pay those bills again, I want to protect myself next summer.
Right.
You need to do it right now.
Do it now.
Right. As we sit in the December 1st day, you need to get it done. You're almost going too far. You need to get it done soon because you want it installed before summer hits so that you can start seeing a benefit right away in the summer.
Build those credits up because we do get a lot of those customers who will get, they'll get solar turned on in July and they'll go, hey, my bill did go down, but didn't go down as much as I thought. So then I take a look at it and go, well, that's because you didn't build up credits. Credits you build up in January, February, March, and April, and those credits roll over to the summer. But you got your system turned on in July.
Right.
You don't have any credits to roll over. So guess what? You have to wait till next year to see the better savings.
Right. And you're still going to see the savings.
You'll still see it. Yeah.
It's an annual
savings. Yeah.
Annual savings. So that's real important. It's an annual saving. We're going to get into savings later.
Yeah.
But so time to shine, right? We talked about the solar, the sun's paths. There's azimuth, and when we say azimuth, it just basically means north, south, east, west.
Right.
What position your panels are facing. Those all produce at a different level.
Yep.
Right. So we always talk about, just in general, it could be different for utilities, but in general, you're always going to get more from a southern panel. You're just going to get more production. That's just how it is, because it's facing south, and even in the winter when the sun is in the south, you're getting good production out of that.
Yep.
You have your east and your west, where you're going to get, your good production from the east in the morning. You're going to get your good production, especially in the summer, late in the afternoons, from the west. In SRP, we've talked about where you really want to be west, because it makes the most sense because of how their rates put together. I'm not going to talk about that again. Yeah. And then north is going to be okay in the summer and not so great the rest of the time.
Yeah.
So that's where azimuth play. When we talk azimuth, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. And if you do have solar, you can look on your monitoring app or your utility, look at it throughout the day, 15-minute intervals or hour by hour. Get up early one day and look at your solar production in the morning and see how it ramps up and then drops down, and then compare it to, how it was in the summer. It's not going to get as high, because we do get those, those customers who say, it's working, but it's supposed to produce this amount.
Right.
Like, well, it's wintertime, going back in June and July, it produced, a lot higher because the sun was in a different spot.
Right.
Now it's lower on the horizon. So your production, is still there. It's just not as high it was as when the summer.
It just goes back to your bell curve.
Yep.
We're going to give you 20,000 kilowatt hours a year out of the system, but it's a year. And you're going to get majority of them in here and then there. It's going to change per month based on all these things we're talking about.
Yeah.
Tilt is another thing, right? So when we talk tilt, what degree of tilt is the panel at?
Yeah.
That's important.
That's a huge factor.
You talk about tilt.
We do have flat roofs here in Arizona.
Yep.
We do have customers who say, can we just lay the panels flat on the roof? Like,
we talked about that.
We could. Yeah, we did talk about that. We could, but that's not really beneficial because we want to angle it towards the sun.
Right.
No, we don't want, I understand that your flat roof gets a lot of light. We do talk to a lot of customers who go, oh, this side of my roof gets a lot of light and this wall gets a lot of light, things like that. But we know the south is probably going to get the most light, and depending on shading and all those other factors. But the tilt of the panels, we want to tilt it towards the sunlight.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Makes total sense.
I know. Well, we say this and joke about it, but
and the average tilt in Arizona is 18 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
That's on average.
On a roof,
we'll typically see 18 degrees. In the Midwest, in our Oklahoma operation, it's, there's some steep roofs there. We see some crazy tilts.
Yeah.
But in Arizona, it's about 18 degrees. And if we're on a flat roof, we're typically tilting between 10 to 15 degrees.
Yep.
So we do that, again, to tilt toward this light so we can get the production.
Yep.
Think about it if you have them on the north and they're tilted away from the sun.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Exactly. And
then you get people that say, we'll just do a reverse tilt. We'll put it on the north and we'll tilt it back toward the south. And we talked about that in the last podcast, why we won't do that.
Yeah.
But that's why you see people that actually have those kites up on the top of the roof, because they're trying to tilt toward the sun.
We won't do crazy things.
No, not anymore. And then you already talked about shading, and shading is obviously something we're gonna always be cognizant of. If you have trees, if you have shading, we're gonna try to place panels and placement. We're gonna place panels away from that shading to make sure we get the most production. Because again, we need light to produce DC power.
Yep.
Okay. So that's time to shine. That kind of gives you an idea of what, we talked about in our, I think it was episode 6. Or maybe episode 5. Daniel
One of the episodes.
Yeah. So it was the solar proposal episode with Daniel Reese. I mean, we talked about panel placement and going around different things and stuff. So if you want to deeper dive into that, I would listen to that episode. All right. And that's I think that's everything with time to shine, that we've gone through a lot of good information here between all the components of the solar, how we go from the DC power from the sun. The panel turns that into DC power, goes into an inverter to convert to AC power, and kind of where it goes from there. We've gone through all that. Talked a little bit about positioning panel wise, and the path of the sun and all the different things that produce. So that was a lot of information. We're going to stop here. This is going to be part 1 of Solar 101. Next time we're going to do part 2, which is going to go more into the purchase types, the savings, how you look at savings. We're going to give you some real examples of savings. We have some customers that we're going to show you their actual case scenarios,
actual bills,
and
before and after. Really
cool stuff that we're going to get into. That'll be part 2. So if you enjoyed part 1, part 2 is just going to get better. Looking forward to have you tune in and join us for that. Again, subscribe the Harmon Solar Podcast. You can go to harmonsolar.com/podcast, and we have our podcast page there that shows you all the different episodes, links you to YouTube so you can see these pretty faces. Or just go to your favorite podcast place, whether it be Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, and look us up, harmonsolarpodcast.com. Thanks again for your time, and we'll see you soon.
See ya.